Thank you very much, everybody. And I've said it multiple times already, but I don't know how we're all going to fit into our clothes with all these delicious snacks that we're getting throughout the day. Now, once everyone's seated, I'll introduce this next section. Great. So this is the last section that we will have for today. And now, since we've seen the obligations that we currently have, now we're going to look at, well, who exactly is already working to conserve and to highlight biodiversity in Ireland. So to kind of follow on from the formal and the governmental structures, we're going to take a look at some of the amazing voluntary and community sector work that's happening around the country. So we first of all have a video of randomly chosen groups from across the country, a very small selection of the many who are working. In the video, they are going to talk about what the work that they do, and they also talk about what they want to see happen in terms of the challenges that they face. This isn't necessarily something that you might agree with or we might agree with. These are all things for discussion, but it's to give us a snapshot of what's happening right now across the country with the video that's been put together only this week from footage that was recorded in the last 2 weeks. So once we have it, Cathal. Oh yeah, and we'll while we're waiting for the video, we'll thank Tim, who took it upon himself to go around the country, put on a pair of wellies, and talk to all of these people about what they do. So now we'll see the fruits of that.
I'm Sean Carlin. I'm a community activist in Morani for the last 20 years. I'm a member of the Old Irish Goat Society, and we're promoting the Old Irish Goat as an important indigenous breed of Ireland that needs to be preserved. The Old Irish Goat is Ireland's indigenous breed of goat. It goes back over 5,000 years. I became interested in it because it had no protection, no legal protection. There was no conservation efforts happening for it. These animals, not alone are they biodiversity, but they also provide us with key functions.
Last year we started a project in conjunction with Mayo County Council to explore the use of Old Irish goats to eradicate invasive species. And Gunra is that plant. It's 7 foot high and it has a massive leaf, and it grows up along the west coast in wet areas of land, and the only control they have on it is pesticides application. So this is like a biological control where we use the goat instead of chemicals to get rid of it.
The Old Irish Goat came to Ireland with Neolithic farmers. It was used to help clear land. It was quite famously exported, live exports to England in the late 1800s and the early 1900s in herds of up to 900. And the population of Old Irish Goats in Ireland in the 1920s was 250,000. And the Old Irish Goat was effectively discarded by commercial farming in Ireland. They became feral on the mountains. So you had the challenge of capturing these animals and bringing them into a captive breeding program. We now have about 50 adult breeding females tagged in Ireland, and that's basically the national herd of Old Irish Goats. That took us 10 years to achieve that. We have about 20 active people involved in the society. We have 5 directors, we have 1 staff, we have some people on CE schemes. So we have a very progressive, very dynamic group. Genetic resources are a vital subcomponent of biodiversity. We rely on it for our survival, for food, for functionality. But it's lost in the biodiversity space. We have no EU directives for genetic resources. We have no legal protection for genetic resources. It has been systematically sidelined for decades, and we need change.
We're friends with Camac. We were set up at the end of 2017, early 2018. We're a small group of volunteers in Clondalkin, not-for-profit organisation committed to cleaning and preserving the Comac River and its greenway. So protecting the water quality and the biodiversity, and trying to make sure that this beautiful little river, which has been a famous trout stream in its day, is still there for the people of Clondalkin in years to come. One of the biggest challenges is the complexity. When you're dealing with any pieces of land, any waterways, ownership is an issue. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. We don't have any legal expertise. We don't have great funding opportunities. So it's a work in progress. We need to be more ambitious for the river. We've done lots of good work in terms of engagement, removal of tunnelling, working with the stakeholders. But what we really need is meaningful work done on the river, because my worry is that with all these invasive species and the silting up, that we're going to lose the river. We've great relationships with South Dublin County Council and the Dublin Urban Rivers Life Project and Law Pro. They're wonderful, but they need to get funding and manpower. They're massive jobs to clear out these. What used to be a big pond now is sort of almost a back drain due to the crack willows and the overgrowth. The guys are great they're experts on bird life. Tommy's a community organiser, Brian is a finance person, and Brian Nolan would be very knowledgeable of the river. We need help. We feel the government needs to do more. Water quality is so important, and biodiversity loss is so obvious that little groups like ours, we just need more commitment, I suppose, from the government to do meaningful work to get, real improvement in water quality and support the biodiversity. And it would make all the little bits that groups like ours are doing, it would make them really meaningful and powerful, but we can't do it on our own.
I'm involved in the stone business and in salvage and carvings and that kind of stuff. That's the business I'm involved in. But the group I'm involved in is a group called Corrib Bio Partnership, and it's a voluntary association formed 3 years ago by a group of like-minded people that were concerned about the deterioration of the Corrib Lake and the Corrib waterways, etc. So we formed a group, and its primary purpose is dedicated to the social, economic and environmental well-being and sustainable development of the Corrib. To knit together the communities around the Corrib, so the communities, instead of being local, they begin to have a perspective that's broader. And once they become knitted together as a broader community, then the issues of the region can be actually profiled. And obviously the whole biodiversity deterioration is a very, very big issue. The Corrib is the second largest lake in the country. It looks, on superficial, it looks pristine, beautiful, scenically beautiful, to row in it is beautiful, etc. But there is a continuous deterioration in the quality of the water, in the biodiversity, associated biodiversity, and it has been continuous for 50 years. At one stage, you could paddle up the lake, put your hand in the water and drink the water. You wouldn't dare to do that now. There is a continuous deterioration in a lot of the quality metrics of the lake, and it's something of major concern. And even though there are a lot of agencies working towards remediation, the decline continues, and that's something we're very, very aware of, and that's something we're hoping to be able to pull the different agencies together, the different groups, all of the interest sectors, to be able to pull them together so that we have a central vision and a central effort towards remediation. One specific thing, the curlew is a native bird of Ireland, and according to when we started first, there were 12 breeding pairs on the Corrib. The latest information is there, 1 breeding pair. It is frightening, the deterioration at that level, and that would be a manifestation of the broader kind of situation of biodiversity. We do need to be better resourced in terms of having administrators, communicators, the different facets of any business to make it successful. We don't have all of those in place. To a small extent, we're still an ad hoc operation. Very well intentioned, fairly effective, but not as effective as we need to be to meet the objectives.
My name is Cormac McCarthy, and I am the chairman of Ennis Tidy Towns, the current reigning champions of the National Super Value Tidy Towns competition. The Tidy Towns is a bit of a misnomer in that people think it's primarily around litter picking and flower beds. Basically, Tidy Towns is the biggest sustainability competition in the country, and biodiversity forms a huge part of that. It's a dedicated category in our submission, and here in Ennis we've been focusing a lot of our attention on the biodiversity area and community-led projects that we can implement here and importantly share with other groups. So are they replicable, are they scalable? So it's doing our part but being part of a larger collective to try and halt biodiversity loss. The Tidy Towns movement has changed significantly in the last couple of years. A lot of the groups are migrating towards more sustainable landscaping. There are fantastic initiatives around the country. In Kilkenny, they planted 10,000 trees as part of their Tidy Towns group. In Tralee Tidy Towns, there's the Maharees group who are working on local sand dunes. We have quite a lot of volunteers, both our core group of volunteers, but also people who are really just interested in the biodiversity side of things. We've developed a lot of projects in recent years. We have signed up to the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. We've won the large urban centre category now for the last couple of years, and that's a fantastic resource for community groups throughout the country. We have developed biodiversity guidelines for community green spaces. We've actually prepared a biodiversity action plan for the town, and we went out to the local community and we asked them what their favourite wildlife spots were around the town. We're very fortunate, as I said, we have the River Fergus, Special Area Conservation. We have the Post Office Field, which is a seasonally flooded field on the banks of the river, hugely important for local wildlife. We worked with local consultants and we developed guidelines for community green spaces, GAA grounds and our local park. And we're also working with Law Pros. We've got a lovely educational piece about the River Fergus, which is the river that goes through Ennis. It's a special area conservation and it really has high biodiversity value. But I think the main challenge facing groups like ours is supports. And we don't mean grant aid, there's an awful lot of grant aid out there, but it's having that contact in a state agency or a local authority and having them staffed sufficiently that we can ring them up and go, look, we have a query, we're not too sure how to do this, can you come out and assist us? We can't always be going out to consultants, we don't have the money for that. So I think the one thing we do need to bear in mind is it might seem like a small action that you're doing, but if that was replicated by 900 other groups throughout the country, we are having a tremendous impact on halting biodiversity loss, and we should be cognizant of that, as should the government agencies and the public sector who should be there to help support that work.
My name is Dermot Croghan. I'm here representing the Hedgerow Ireland. We're a voluntary group, citizens set up here in Tipperary. Originally back in 2019 to complain about the widespread destruction of hedgerows. Hedgerows are important for biodiversity, especially important for biodiversity in Ireland, because this is our stock of native woodland basically. We have the lowest forestation rates in Europe. We have approximately 600,000 kilometres of hedgerows in Ireland. About 6,000 are being destroyed every year, we reckon. And it's all very well talking about planting trees, but we have the stock of trees here already, but it's important that they're managed correctly and preserved as they are. And if you look around you here, we're on a dry stock farm in South Tipperary, organic for the last 40 years. You see here the effect of a well-managed hedgerow. This is not wild, this has been managed for 40 years to provide a maximum amount of biodiversity, to provide a maximum amount of carbon sequestration. And our attitude is that we're in a situation now where farmers are being encouraged to move away from being paid for production, and they're being encouraged to be paid for environmental services. And we're strongly making the case that there should be a basic minimum payment for existing hedgerows for all landowners, farmers in particular, and obviously then education, training with landowners, contractors as to what the appropriate hedgerow management regimes are for different types of hedgerows. So everybody agrees that using hedgerows for carbon sequestration and for biodiversity is a win-win for everybody involved. It's relatively easy to implement. It's just a matter of bringing the legislation and bringing in the appropriate measures.
I'm Paul Handrick. We're on the Beast Sanctuary of Ireland in County Wicklow, and I suppose we're the only native wild beast sanctuary on the planet. We advocate for our native wild bees, bumblebees, solitary bees. We say bees to people, they immediately think honey. Think honeybees, they think hives. That's not what we are. We don't have hives. We don't produce honey. We're basically just here to say, listen, our bees are in trouble, our insects are in trouble, nature's in trouble, and we're trying to highlight that. I suppose we're using this piece of land to highlight that.
Because we're not activists, we're not environmentalists, we're just a normal family. We had a farm, and we decided, and we looked at it and we thought things need to be done better. And we kind of, I suppose, we're drawing a line in the depleted soil. Is the way I put it. Enough's enough. We need to do something about this. We're in serious trouble when it comes to nature and when it comes to a word I don't like using, biodiversity. Nature's in trouble, and we need to realise that. We need to realise that quickly. We need to do something about it. So I mean, the stats are there, the figures are there. We need to do something about it, and we kind of looked and went, who are we in one way, but who aren't we in another? When I mean, someone has to start saying this, and someone has to start sharing about it. And what we try to do here is we do it on the ground, and we back up what we say with action on the ground. I suppose that's what we do. We try to inspire people to take a look at the problem, at the depth of the problem, and to then go in and do something about it. There's no point in talking about it. There's no point in having meetings about it. There's no point in having all these good intentions. We need to act, and we need to act now. And we just literally stayed out of it. And what we see year on year is just an increase in species, in abundance, wildflowers coming back, insects, bees. It's just incredible to watch, and it can happen very quickly. We're the size of 31 football pitches. That'll give you an idea. Our hedgerows, our ditches, as they used to be called, are 30, 40 metres wide in places. You know, they're wild, they're brambles, they're nettles, they're thistle, and that's where the magic is. The majority of land in this country is given over to agriculture, and that's what we need to look at, and we need to look at seriously. And it's not a debate of whether it's causing problems, whether it's polluting our water, whether it's polluting our air, whether it's taking every inch from nature. That's a given now. We know that. So are we going to actually do something about that? And I'm not saying let's shut down farming. This isn't having a swipe at farmers. It's having a glance towards truth and towards a future that we can exist in. And what I say to people on the assembly is, thank you for listening. Make sure you hear.